Elena Rosewood stood in front of her bedroom mirror and smiled. Tonight was going to be perfect. She wore a red dress that cost more than most people made in a month. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that made her look like a movie star. Diamond earrings sparkled in the light. The party downstairs was already loud with music and laughter. Elena could hear people talking and glasses clinking. She loved parties, especially her own parties. They made her feel important and powerful. Elena was 24 years old and very rich. Her father owned many big companies. Her mother came from an old family with lots of money. Elena had never worked a day in her life. She did not need to work. Money was never a problem for her. But Elena had one big problem. She could not find a husband. Not because no one wanted to marry her, many men wanted to marry her. The problem was that Elena did not want any of them. Every week a new man would try to win her heart. They would bring her flowers and expensive gifts. They would take her to fancy restaurants. They would tell her she was beautiful and smart. But Elena always said no. Her friends thought she was too picky. Her parents thought she was being difficult. But Elena knew what she wanted. She wanted someone special, someone different, someone who could surprise her. Elena walked down the stairs to her party. The penthouse apartment was huge and beautiful. It had big windows that showed the lights of Manhattan below. There were fresh flowers everywhere. Waiters in white uniforms carried trays of champagne and fancy food. About 50 people were at the party. They were all rich and important. There were business owners, lawyers, doctors, and people from famous families. Everyone was dressed in expensive clothes and jewelry. "Elena, darling," called out Mrs. Patterson, an older woman with too much makeup. "You look wonderful tonight. Have you met my nephew? He just graduated from Harvard Law School." Elena smiled politely but moved away quickly. She had already met Mrs. Patterson's nephew. He was boring and only talked about himself. Near the big windows, Elena saw Richard Ashworth talking to a group of men. Richard was 32 years old and very handsome. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He always wore perfect suits and expensive watches. Richard's family owned banks and hotels. He was exactly the kind of man Elena's parents wanted her to marry. Richard saw Elena and walked over to her with a big smile. "Elena, you look amazing tonight," he said. He took her hand and kissed it. "This party is wonderful. You always know how to entertain." "Thank you, Richard," Elena said. She pulled her hand away gently. Richard was always trying to touch her or stand too close. "I was just telling the other men about my trip to Paris last week," Richard said. He puffed out his chest proudly. "I closed a very big deal there, made millions of dollars in just 2 days." Elena had heard this story 3 times already tonight. Richard loved to talk about his money and success. He thought it would impress her. "That's nice," Elena said, looking around the room. She was already bored. "I also bought a new yacht," Richard continued. "It's the biggest one at the marina. Maybe you would like to go sailing with me this weekend." Before Elena could answer, Richard's friend James walked over. James was drunk and laughing loudly. "Richard, tell Elena about your piano lessons," he said. Richard's face turned red. "James, please." "What piano lessons?" Elena asked. Now she was interested. "Richard has been taking piano lessons for 6 months, James said with a big grin. "He thinks he's very talented." "I am talented," Richard said, getting angry. "My teacher says I have natural ability." Elena raised her eyebrows. "Really? You play piano?" "Of course I do," Richard said. "I'm very good at it. I can play many songs." Elena looked around the room. In the corner was her grandmother's old piano. It was beautiful and black, made of expensive wood. Elena had taken piano lessons as a child, but never practiced much. She was not very good at it. An idea came to Elena's mind. A mischievous smile crossed her face. She had played this game before with other men who claimed to have talents they did not really have. "Richard," she said loudly. Her voice carried across the room. "Would you like to prove how talented you are?" The room started to get quiet. People turned to look at Elena and Richard. They could sense something interesting was about to happen. "What do you mean?" Richard asked nervously. Elena walked over to the piano. She put her hand on top of it dramatically. Everyone in the room was now watching and listening. "Play for us," Elena said with a sweet smile. "Show everyone how talented you are." Richard looked around the room. All eyes were on him. He could not back down now without looking like a fool. "Of course," he said, trying to sound confident. "I would be happy to play." Elena's smile got bigger. She was enjoying this. "Actually, Richard, let me make this more interesting." The room was completely quiet now. Even the waiters stopped moving to listen. Elena looked directly at Richard. Her voice was clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Play," she said dramatically, "and I will marry you." Then she laughed. It was not a nice laugh. It was the laugh of someone who knew they were about to win a game. Gasps filled the room. People whispered to each other excitedly. Elena Rosewood, the woman who had said no to every man in the city, was offering to get married, but only if Richard could play piano well. Richard's face went white. Then it went red. Then it went white again. He looked at the piano like it was a dangerous animal. Elena's mother rushed over. "Elena, what are you doing?" she whispered urgently. "Having fun, Mother," Elena whispered back. Richard walked slowly to the piano. His hands were shaking a little. He sat down on the bench and looked at the black and white keys. Everyone in the room held their breath. Richard put his fingers on the keys and began to play. The sound that came out was terrible. His fingers hit the wrong keys. The music had no rhythm. It sounded like someone was dropping pots and pans down the stairs. After 30 seconds, Richard stopped. Sweat was on his forehead. The room was silent. Then someone in the back started to giggle. Soon, other people were trying not to laugh. Within a minute, half the room was laughing quietly behind their hands. Elena clapped her hands slowly. "Wonderful, Richard," she said with fake enthusiasm. "Truly talented." Richard stood up quickly from the piano bench. His face was bright red, with embarrassment and anger. "This is ridiculous," he said. "No one could play well with all these people watching." "Of course not," Elena agreed, still smiling. "How silly of me to expect you to actually be good at something you claim to be talented at." The laughter in the room got louder. Richard looked around at all the people laughing at him. He was furious. "You're impossible, Elena," he said loudly. "No wonder no man wants to marry you. You're cold and cruel." Elena's smile never changed. "And yet you just tried to marry me 30 seconds ago." Richard stormed out of the party. Several of his friends followed him. Elena watched them go, feeling very pleased with herself. The party continued, but the mood had changed. People kept talking about what had just happened. Some thought Elena was funny and clever. Others thought she had been too mean to Richard. Elena did not care what they thought. She had won again. Another man had tried to impress her with lies, and she had exposed him. She walked around the party accepting congratulations and compliments from her friends. But as the night went on, Elena started to feel empty inside. The game had been too easy. Richard was not smart enough to be a real challenge. She wondered if she would ever meet someone who could truly surprise her. Little did Elena know that in just a few hours, someone would surprise her more than she ever thought possible. Someone she would never expect. Someone who would change her life forever. The party continued late into the night. Elena smiled and laughed with her guests. But deep down, she felt the same loneliness she always felt, the same boredom, the same disappointment in the world around her. She had no idea that everything was about to change. It was almost midnight when the last guests finally left Elena's party. The big penthouse was quiet now except for the sound of cleaning up. Empty champagne glasses sat on tables everywhere. Dirty plates with leftover fancy food were scattered around the room. Elena kicked off her high heels and sat down on her expensive sofa. Her feet hurt from standing all night. She was tired but also restless. The party had been successful, but she felt empty inside. "Miss Rosewood," said Maria, the housekeeper. "Should I start cleaning now or wait until morning?" "Wait until morning, Maria. Elena said. Go home to your family. The night janitor will clean the main areas anyway. Maria nodded and gathered her things. Soon, Elena was alone in the big apartment. She walked to the windows and looked out at the city lights below. New York looked beautiful at night, but Elena felt lonely even surrounded by millions of people. Elena's mother had left, the party angry about the piano incident. Her father would hear about it tomorrow and be disappointed in her again. They wanted her to marry Richard or someone like him. They wanted to combine their family money with another rich family's money. But Elena did not love Richard. She did, not even like him very much. He was handsome and rich, but he was also boring and fake. He pretended to be good at things he was bad at. He only cared about money and showing off. Elena heard footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. It must be the night janitor starting his work. She had seen him a few times before but never really noticed him. He was just part of the building, like the elevators or the doorman. She decided to take a bath and go to bed. Tomorrow would bring another day of phone calls from angry friends, lectures from her parents, and probably flowers from Richard trying to apologize. Elena walked past the piano toward her bedroom. She stopped and looked at it. The beautiful black piano had been in her family for 3 generations. Her grandmother had been a wonderful piano player. Elena remembered sitting next to her as a little girl, watching her grandmother's fingers dance across the keys. Elena had taken piano lessons for 5 years as a child. Her teacher said she had talent, but Elena was more interested in parties and shopping than practicing. She quit when she was 13. Sometimes she wondered what would have happened if she had kept playing. She touched the piano keys gently. They were cold and smooth under her fingers. She pressed one key and heard a clear, sweet note ring out in the quiet apartment. Elena was about to leave when she heard something strange. Music was coming from somewhere in the building. Piano music. Beautiful, sad, and haunting piano music. She listened carefully. The music was coming from downstairs. Someone was playing piano in the building lobby. But who would be playing piano at midnight? Elena's curiosity was stronger than her tiredness. She put her shoes back on and quietly opened her apartment door. The music was clearer in the hallway. It was definitely coming from the lobby many floors below. She took the elevator down. As she got closer to the lobby, the music got louder and more beautiful. It was a classical piece she recognized but could not name. The person playing was very skilled. Each note was perfect and full of emotion. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. Elena stepped out carefully and quietly. The lobby was dimly lit with just a few security lights on. In the corner was an old piano that the building management kept for special events. Sitting at the piano was a man Elena had never really looked at before. He was the night janitor. His back was to her and his fingers moved across the keys like magic. The music he was making was the most beautiful thing Elena had ever heard. The janitor was completely focused on his playing. He did not hear Elena approach. She stood about 10 feet away and watched him. His body moved with the music. His head swayed gently. This was not just someone who knew how to play piano. This was someone who understood music in his soul. Elena recognized the piece now. It was a Chopin nocturne, one of the most difficult and beautiful pieces ever written. She had heard famous concert pianists play it on recordings, but never like this. The janitor was playing it with such feeling and skill that Elena felt tears come to her eyes. She had never heard Richard play, but she was sure he could never play like this. In fact, Elena had never heard anyone play like this in real life. The janitor was not just good at piano. He was extraordinary. The music reached a soft, gentle ending. The last notes hung in the air like a prayer. The janitor sat quietly for a moment, his hands still on the keys. Elena realized she had been holding her breath. She let it out slowly and accidentally made a small sound. The janitor heard her and turned around quickly. He was a young Asian man, probably in his late 20s. He had kind eyes and gentle features. When he saw Elena, his face filled with fear and embarrassment. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, standing up from the piano bench. "I didn't know anyone was here. I wasn't supposed to touch the piano. I'll go back to work now." His English was good, but had a slight accent. He started to walk away quickly. "Wait," Elena said. Please don't go. The janitor stopped but looked nervous. He probably thought he was in trouble. That was beautiful, Elena said softly. I've never heard anyone play like that. The janitor looked surprised. You're not angry? Angry? Why would I be angry? That was the most beautiful music I've ever heard. The janitor relaxed a little but still looked uncomfortable. He was wearing a simple uniform and old shoes. His hair was a little messy from working all night. I shouldn't have been playing, he said. I'm supposed to be cleaning. How long have you been playing piano? Elena asked. The janitor hesitated. Since I was very young, but I don't play much anymore. Only sometimes at night when no one is around. Where did you learn to play like that? Again, the janitor looked uncomfortable. In China, before I came to America. Elena moved closer to him. She was genuinely curious about this quiet man who could create such beautiful music. What's your name? She asked. Marcus, he said quietly. Marcus Chen. I'm Elena Rosewood. I live in the penthouse. Marcus nodded. I know who you are, Miss Rosewood. I clean your floor sometimes. Elena felt embarrassed. She had never noticed him before, even though he had been cleaning near her apartment for months. Marcus, would you play something else? Please? Marcus looked around nervously. I should really get back to work. If my supervisor finds out I was playing piano instead of cleaning, I won't tell anyone, Elena promised. Please, just one more song. Marcus looked at Elena's face. He could see that she really wanted to hear more music. Slowly, he walked back to the piano and sat down. What would you like to hear? He asked. Whatever you want to play, Elena said. Something that means something to you. Marcus thought for a moment. Then he began to play a different piece. This one was slower and even more emotional than the first. Elena did not recognize it, but it made her feel things she had never felt before. As Marcus played, Elena watched his face. His eyes were closed, and he was completely lost in the music. This was not work for him. This was not showing off. This was pure expression of something deep inside him. The music told a story without words. Elena could hear sadness in it, but also hope. She could hear longing for something far away. She could hear the struggle of someone who had dreams but could not reach them. When the song ended, Elena realized she was crying. She wiped her tears away quickly, but Marcus had already seen them. That was your own composition, wasn't it? She asked. Marcus looked surprised. How did you know? I could hear your story in it. Your real story. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I wrote that song when I first came to America. I was very homesick and scared. Music was the only thing that helped me feel better. Elena sat down on a chair near the piano. She wanted to know more about this mysterious man who could touch her heart with music. Tell me about China, she said gently. Marcus looked at her carefully. He was not used to rich people wanting to hear his story, but something in Elena's voice told him she was really interested. I grew up in Beijing, he began slowly. My family was not rich, but my parents saved money to give me piano lessons. My teacher said I had talent. When I was 18, I got a scholarship to study at the Beijing Conservatory. That's amazing, Elena said. The Beijing Conservatory is one of the best music schools in the world. Marcus smiled sadly. Yes, it is. I studied there for 2 years. I was going to be a concert pianist. That was my dream. What happened? Marcus's face became sad. My father got sick, very sick. The medical bills were too expensive. My family lost everything trying to pay for his treatment. He died anyway. Elena felt her heart break for Marcus. She had never known what it was like to worry about money or lose someone she loved. After my father died, my mother became sick too, Marcus continued. But we had no money left for doctors. My uncle in America said he could help me get a visa. He said I could work here and send money back to China for my mother's medicine. So you gave up music to save your mother? I had no choice. Family is more important than dreams. Elena understood now why Marcus's music was so full of emotion. He was not playing for fame or money or to impress people. He was playing his life, his love, his sacrifice, and his pain. "How long have you been in America?" Elena asked. 3 years. I work 3 jobs. I clean offices at night, wash dishes at a restaurant during the day, and help people move on weekends. Elena could not sleep that night. She lay in her expensive bed thinking about Marcus and his beautiful music. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear the sad, sweet melody he had played for her. She had met hundreds of people at parties and social events, rich men, famous artists, powerful business leaders, but none of them had ever affected her the way Marcus did in just 1 hour. There was something about him that was completely different from every other man she knew. He was real. He was honest. When he spoke about his family and his struggles, Elena could hear the truth in his voice. When he played piano, she could feel his soul in every note. Elena woke up the next morning thinking about Marcus. She ate breakfast thinking about Marcus. She tried to read a book, but she kept thinking about Marcus. Her phone rang constantly. Friends wanted to gossip about the party and Richard's embarrassing piano performance. Her mother called 3 times to scold her for being rude to Richard. Elena ignored most of the calls. Around noon, her best friend Sarah came over for lunch. Sarah was 23 years old and came from another wealthy family. She had blonde hair and always wore designer clothes. Sarah loved drama and gossip more than anything else. "Elena, everyone is talking about last night," Sarah said as she sat down for lunch. "Richard is telling people you humiliated him on purpose." "I did humiliate him on purpose," Elena said, not looking up from her salad. "Why would you do that? Richard is perfect for you. He's handsome, rich, and his family owns half the banks in the city." Elena put down her fork. "Sarah, if Richard is so perfect, why don't you marry him?" "Because he wants to marry you, silly. Everyone knows Richard has been in love with you for 2 years. Elena laughed. "Richard is not in love with me. He's in love with my family's money and social status. He wants to marry me because I'm a trophy he can show off to his friends." Sarah looked confused. "What's wrong with that? Marriage is about finding the right partner for your social position. Love comes later." Elena had heard this philosophy her whole life. Marry someone from the right family, someone with money and connections. Love was not important, but after meeting Marcus, Elena began to question everything she had been taught. What if there was more to life than money and social status? Elena asked. Sarah laughed. "Elena, you're being ridiculous. Money and social status are everything. Without them, you're nobody." Elena thought about Marcus working 3 jobs to help his sick mother. He had no money and no social status, but he was somebody. He was more somebody than most of the rich people Elena knew. That afternoon, Elena found an excuse to go down to the building lobby. She told herself she was just checking the mail, but really she hoped to see Marcus. The piano sat quietly in the corner. Elena walked over and touched the keys where Marcus had played the night before. "Can I help you, Miss Rosewood?" asked Tom, the daytime security guard. "Oh, I was just looking at the piano," Elena said. "It's a nice piano. Sometimes the night janitor plays it when he thinks no one is listening. He's pretty good." Elena's heart jumped. "The night janitor plays piano?" "Yeah, Marcus, he's a good kid. Works real hard, always polite and respectful. He cleans your floor, you know." "I didn't realize," Elena lied. "He told me he went to some fancy music school in China before he came here. Had to give it up to work and help his family. Kind of sad, really. He's got real talent." Elena spent the rest of the day thinking about what Tom had said. Marcus had given up his dreams to help his family. That was the most noble thing Elena had ever heard of. Most of the men Elena knew only cared about themselves. They talked about their achievements, their money, their plans to get richer and more powerful. But Marcus had sacrificed everything for someone else. That evening, Elena waited until late. Around 11:30, she took the elevator down to the lobby. Her heart was beating fast. She was nervous about seeing Marcus again. The lobby was quiet and dimly lit. Elena heard the sound of a vacuum cleaner from the hallway. Marcus was working. She waited by the piano. After a few minutes, Marcus came into the lobby carrying cleaning supplies. When he saw Elena, he stopped and looked surprised. "Miss Rosewood," he said politely. "Is everything okay?" "I was hoping you might play for me again," Elena said shyly. Marcus looked around nervously. "I really should finish my work first." "I'll wait," Elena said, sitting down in a chair near the piano. Marcus seemed unsure, but he nodded. "Okay, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Elena waited patiently while Marcus finished cleaning the lobby and hallway. She watched him work. He was thorough and careful. He took pride in doing his job well, even though it was just cleaning. When Marcus finished working, he sat down at the piano. "What would you like to hear tonight?" "Tell me about your music school in China," Elena said. "What was it like?" Marcus's eyes became bright with memory. "It was wonderful. I studied with the best teachers in the country. I practiced 8 hours every day. I learned pieces by Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, Liszt, all the great composers." "Play something you learned there," Elena requested. Marcus began to play a piece by Mozart. It was light and joyful, completely different from the sad music he had played the night before. His fingers moved quickly and precisely across the keys. Elena could see years of training and discipline in every movement. When he finished, Elena clapped softly. "That was amazing. You could have been a professional concert pianist." Marcus smiled sadly. "Maybe in another life." "Don't you ever think about going back to music?" "Sometimes. But it's impossible now. I'm 28 years old. That's old for a pianist just starting his career. And I have responsibilities. My mother needs me." Elena felt a deep sadness for Marcus. He had been so close to achieving his dreams, but life had taken them away. "Tell me about your mother," Elena said gently. Marcus's face became soft and loving. "She is the kindest person in the world. She worked 2 jobs to pay for my piano lessons when I was young. She never bought anything for herself. Everything was for my education and my music. She must be very proud of you." "I hope so. I call her every week. I tell her I'm doing well in America, but I don't tell her about the 3 jobs or how hard it is. I don't want her to worry." Elena was amazed by Marcus's love for his mother. Elena's own relationship with her parents was cold and formal. They cared more about her social reputation than her happiness. "What does your mother think you're doing in America?" I told her I'm teaching piano and working as a translator. "It's not exactly true, but it's not exactly a lie either. I do translate. Sometimes when people need help with Chinese documents." Elena realized that Marcus was protecting his mother's feelings even from thousands of miles away. He did not want her to know how much he had sacrificed for her. "Marcus, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever feel angry about what happened? About having to give up your dreams?" Marcus thought for a long time before answering. "At first, yes. I was very angry. I felt sorry for myself. But then I realized that my music training taught me something important." "What's that?" "In music, sometimes you have to change keys in the middle of a piece. The melody stays the same, but it sounds different. It can be just as beautiful, just in a different way." Elena was struck by Marcus's wisdom. He had found a way to see his life's disappointments as part of a larger composition. "You mean your life changed keys, but it's still beautiful?" "Yes. I may not be performing in concert halls, but I can still make music. I may not be famous, but I can still help my family. The melody of my life is still there, just in a different key." Elena had never heard anyone talk about life that way. All her life, people talked about winning and losing, success and failure, but Marcus saw life as music, with its own rhythm and harmony. "Would you teach me to think about life like music?" Elena asked. Marcus looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I've spent my whole life thinking about what I should do, what other people expected me to do, but I've never thought about what melody my life should have." Marcus smiled. "Music comes from the heart, Miss Rosewood. You have to listen to what your heart wants, not what other people want. What if I don't know what my heart wants?" "Then you practice listening to it, just like practicing piano. Every day you pay attention to what makes you feel alive and what makes you feel empty. Elena thought about this. Most of her life made her feel empty. Shopping, parties, social events, conversations with people like Richard. But sitting here with Marcus, listening to his music and his wisdom, made her feel more alive than she had ever felt. Marcus, I want to learn piano from you. Really learn, not just a few songs. Marcus looked concerned. Miss Rosewood, I don't think that would be appropriate. You are, and I am what? You are a wealthy lady from an important family. I am just a janitor who cleans your building. Elena felt angry, but not at Marcus. She was angry at the world that made him feel he was just anything. Marcus, you are the most talented and wise person I've ever met. I would be honored to learn from you. Marcus looked into Elena's eyes. He could see that she was sincere. If you really want to learn, I will teach you, he said quietly. But it must be our secret. If people found out, I understand, Elena said. It will be our secret. Marcus smiled. Then we will start with the basics. Tomorrow night, I will teach you proper hand position and simple scales. Elena spent the next day counting the hours until midnight. She tried to act normal, but everything felt different. She had lunch with her mother, but barely listened to the conversation about charity events and social obligations. She went shopping with Sarah, but nothing in the expensive stores interested her. You're acting very strange today, Sarah said as they walked through the designer boutique. You haven't bought anything and you keep checking your watch. I'm just tired, Elena lied. Well, you better get your energy back. Richard called me this morning. He wants to apologize for the other night. He's planning something special to win you back. Elena felt her stomach turn. What kind of something special? He wouldn't tell me, but he said he's learned his lesson about bragging. He wants to prove he's serious about you. Elena did not want Richard to prove anything. After meeting Marcus, Richard seemed even more shallow and fake than before. That evening, Elena ate dinner alone in her apartment. She could not concentrate on the expensive meal. All she could think about was her piano lesson with Marcus. At 11:30, Elena took the elevator down to the lobby. Her heart was beating fast with nervous excitement. She had never felt this way about learning something new. Marcus was already there, finishing his cleaning work. When he saw Elena, he smiled warmly. Good evening, Miss Rosewood. Are you ready for your first lesson? Very ready, Elena said. And please call me Elena. Marcus looked uncomfortable. I don't think that would be appropriate. Why not? We're going to be teacher and student. Friends even. Marcus hesitated. In his culture, there were strict rules about social hierarchy. A janitor did not call a wealthy lady by her first name. If you're more comfortable with Miss Rosewood, that's fine, Elena said gently. I just want you to know that I don't think I'm better than you because I have money. Marcus studied Elena's face. He could see that she meant what she said. Thank you, he said quietly. That means more to me than you know. Marcus sat down at the piano and patted the bench beside him. Sit here. First, I will teach you proper posture. Elena sat next to Marcus on the piano bench. Being close to him made her feel strange and nervous. She could smell his simple soap and see the calluses on his hands from his hard work. Sit up straight but not stiff, Marcus instructed. Your shoulders should be relaxed. Your arms should hang naturally at your sides. Elena tried to follow his instructions, but she was very aware of how close they were sitting. Good, Marcus said. Now put your hands on the keys like this. Marcus demonstrated proper hand position. His fingers curved gently over the keys like he was holding small eggs. Elena tried to copy him, but her fingers were tense and flat. Relax, Marcus said softly. He gently adjusted Elena's hand position. When he touched her, Elena felt a spark of electricity. Like this, Marcus said, shaping Elena's fingers. Pretend you're holding something precious that you don't want to break. Elena practiced the hand position for 10 minutes. It was harder than she expected. Her fingers wanted to go back to being flat and tense. Learning piano is like learning a new language, Marcus explained. Your hands have to learn to speak music. How long did it take you to learn? I started when I was 5 years old. By the time I was 8, my hands knew how to speak music naturally. But you're starting later, so it will take longer. Maybe 6 months to feel comfortable. Elena was used to being good at things immediately. She had always been smart and picked up new skills quickly. But piano was different. Now I'll teach you the scales, Marcus said.
Scales are like the alphabet of music. Every song is made from scales. Marcus played a simple C major scale. The notes went up and down smoothly, like steps on a staircase. You try, Marcus said. Elena put her fingers on the keys and tried to play the scale.
It sounded terrible. Her timing was wrong, and some of the notes were too loud while others were too soft. Don't worry, Marcus said patiently. Everyone sounds like that at first. Even I did. Really? Oh yes. My first teacher told my mother. I had no talent and should quit. Elena was shocked. But you're so good. I practiced every day for 20 years. Talent is only the beginning. Hard work is what makes the difference. Elena tried the scale again. It was still bad, but slightly better. Good improvement, Marcus said encouragingly. Practice this scale every day, and in 1 week you'll see a big difference. They worked on scales for 30 minutes. Elena's fingers started to hurt, and she was frustrated with how difficult it was. I thought this would be easier, Elena admitted. Everything worthwhile is difficult at first, Marcus said. But that's what makes it valuable. Anyone can do easy things. Elena realized that she had never done anything truly difficult in her life. Everything had been given to her or made easy for her. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. When you were learning piano as a child, did you ever want to quit? Marcus smiled. Every day for the first year. My hands hurt, my back hurt, and I sounded terrible. I begged my mother to let me quit and play soccer with my friends instead. What made you keep going? My mother told me something I'll never forget. She said, Marcus, when something is hard, that means it's important. Easy things don't change who you are. Hard things make you grow. Elena thought about this wisdom. She had spent her whole life avoiding difficult things. Your mother sounds very wise. She is. Everything good in my life came from her wisdom. Do you miss her? Marcus's face became sad. Every day. But missing her reminds me why I'm working so hard. Love makes hard work feel easier. Elena had never thought about love that way. In her world, love was supposed to make things easier and more comfortable. But Marcus showed her that real love sometimes meant doing difficult things for the people you cared about. They practiced for another hour. By the end of the lesson, Elena could play a very slow, very basic scale without too many mistakes. That's enough for tonight, Marcus said. Your hands need to rest. When can we have the next lesson? Tomorrow night, if you want. But first, you need to practice what I taught you today. I don't have a piano in my apartment, Elena realized. Marcus thought for a moment. There's a piano in the building's community room on the 5th floor. It's not as good as this one, but it works. You could practice there during the day when no one else is using it. Elena felt excited about having a place to practice. What time should I practice? Every day. Same time if possible. Your fingers will learn faster with regular practice. As Elena got ready to leave, she realized she didn't want the lesson to end. She wanted to keep talking to Marcus, learning from him. Marcus, would you tell me more about your life in China? Marcus looked at his watch. It's very late. You should get some sleep. I'm not tired. Please? Marcus could see that Elena was genuinely interested. He was not used to people caring about his story. What would you like to know? Tell me about your first piano teacher. Marcus smiled. His name was Mr. Wu. He was very old and very strict. He would hit my fingers with a ruler if I played wrong. Notes, and that sounds terrible. It was, but it made me practice harder. Mr. Wu taught me that music is not just about playing the right notes. It's about putting your heart into every note. Is that why your playing is so emotional? Mr. Wu always said, if you don't feel the music in your heart, no one else will feel it either. He taught me that technique is only half of music. The other half is soul. Elena understood now why Marcus's playing was so powerful. He had learned not just to play the notes, but to play his feelings. "I want to learn to play with soul too," Elena said. "That will come naturally once you learn the technique." "But Elena," Marcus hesitated. "What?" "Learning to play with soul means you have to be honest about your feelings. You can't hide from yourself when you're playing music." Elena wondered what feelings she had been hiding from herself. She had always tried to be what other people expected her to be. She had never really asked herself what she wanted or how she felt. "I think I'm ready to be honest about my feelings," Elena said. Marcus looked into her eyes. "Music will teach you things about yourself that you didn't know. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Elena thought about her empty life of parties and shopping. She thought about the loneliness she felt even when surrounded by people. She thought about how alive she felt when talking to Marcus. "I'm ready," she said firmly. As Elena rode the elevator back to her penthouse, she felt changed again. Learning piano was going to be about more than just music. It was going to be about discovering who she really was. Over the next week, Elena practiced piano every day in the community room. Her fingers started to hurt less, and the scales began to sound more like music and less like noise. But more importantly, Elena found herself thinking about Marcus all the time. She thought about his wisdom, his kindness, his dedication to his mother. She thought about how different he was from every other man she had ever met. Elena began to realize that her feelings for Marcus were becoming more than just admiration for a teacher. She was falling in love with him, even though she knew it was impossible. Marcus was everything Richard was not. He was humble instead of arrogant. He was wise instead of shallow. He had sacrificed for others instead of only thinking about himself. But Elena also knew that their worlds were completely different. She was rich and he was poor. She was American and he was Chinese. 2 weeks passed and Elena's midnight piano lessons with Marcus became the most important part of her life. Every night at 11:30, she would take the elevator down to the lobby, where Marcus would be waiting with a gentle smile. Elena was improving quickly. Her fingers were learning to speak the language of music. But more than that, she was learning about herself through the music and through her conversations with Marcus. "Tonight, I want to teach you your first real song," Marcus said during their 3rd week of lessons. "Not just scales, but an actual melody." Elena felt excited. "What song?" "Something simple but beautiful. A lullaby my mother used to sing to me." Marcus began to play a soft, sweet melody. It was simple enough for a beginner, but it had a haunting beauty that made Elena's heart ache. "It's about a mother singing to her child who is far away," Marcus explained. "She sings to the moon, hoping her voice will travel across the distance to reach her child." Elena understood that this song was about Marcus and his mother. Every note carried his love and longing for her. "I want to learn it," Elena said softly. Marcus taught Elena the melody note by note. It was much harder than scales, but Elena was determined. She practiced each phrase over and over until her fingers found the right keys without thinking. "Good," Marcus said after an hour of practice. "Now try to play it with feeling, not just the right notes." Elena tried, but her playing sounded mechanical and cold. "What am I doing wrong?" "You're thinking too much about your fingers and not enough about the story. Close your eyes and think about someone you love who is far away." Elena closed her eyes and tried to think, but she realized she had never really loved anyone in that deep, aching way. Her relationships with her parents were formal and distant. Her friendships were shallow. She had never experienced the kind of love that would make her sing to the moon. Then Elena thought about Marcus himself, how she looked forward to seeing him every night, how his wisdom and kindness had changed her view of the world, how his music had awakened something in her soul that she didn't even know existed. Elena began to play the lullaby again, thinking about Marcus. This time, the melody came alive. Each note carried her growing feelings for him. When she finished, Marcus was staring at her with surprise. "That was beautiful," he said quietly. "You played it with real emotion." Elena opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. She wanted to tell him what she had been thinking about while playing. She wanted to tell him that he was the person she had been thinking of when she played about loving someone far away. But she couldn't say those words. Not yet. The song made me think of my grandmother, Elena lied. She died when I was young, but I still miss her. Marcus nodded understandingly. Music helps us remember the people we love. Over the following weeks, Elena and Marcus's relationship deepened. They talked about everything during their lessons. Marcus told Elena about his childhood in Beijing, his dreams of being a concert pianist, his struggles in America. Elena told Marcus about her loneliness, her pressure from her family, her search for meaning in her life. Elena learned that Marcus worked 3 jobs every day. He cleaned offices from midnight to 6 in the morning. Then he would go home, sleep for 3 hours, and work as a dishwasher at a Chinese restaurant from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. On weekends, he helped people move furniture. When do you rest? Elena asked, amazed by his schedule. Rest is a luxury I can't afford, Marcus said simply. My mother's medicine is expensive, and I also need to save money to bring her to America. You want to bring your mother here? It's my biggest dream. She's getting older and I want to take care of her myself. But the visa process is complicated and expensive. Elena felt her heart break for Marcus. He was working himself to exhaustion for his mother, just as he had given up his music career for her. How much money do you need? Elena asked. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Why do you ask? Maybe I could help. No, Marcus said firmly. I could never accept money from you. Why not? I have more money than I could ever use. Because it wouldn't. Be right. I have to earn this myself. Elena admired Marcus's pride, but she also felt frustrated. She had so much money that she didn't need, and he was struggling so hard for something that would be easy for her to provide. As the weeks went on, Elena found herself falling deeper in love with Marcus. She loved his wisdom, his kindness, his dedication to his family. She loved the way he saw beauty in small things. She loved how he had turned his hardships into music instead of bitterness. But Elena also knew that Marcus saw her only as a student and friend. He was always respectful and kept appropriate distance. When their hands accidentally touched during piano lessons, he would pull away quickly. Elena began to change her daily routine to spend more time in the building during Marcus's work hours. She would practice piano in the community room during the afternoons when Marcus was cleaning the upper floors. Sometimes they would run into each other in the hallways. They would stop and talk for a few minutes about music or life. These brief conversations became precious to Elena. One afternoon, Elena was practicing piano when Marcus knocked on the community room door. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said. I need to clean this room. I'll leave, Elena said, starting to gather her music. No, please keep practicing. I can clean around you. Elena continued playing while Marcus cleaned the room. She was working on a difficult piece by Bach, and she kept making mistakes. Try slowing down, Marcus suggested as he dusted the tables. Bach is like mathematics. Every note has to be perfect before you can play it fast. Elena slowed down and found that the piece became much easier. How do you know so much about every composer? Elena asked. I studied music history for years. Each composer had a different personality, like different people you might meet. Bach was precise and mathematical. Chopin was emotional and romantic. Mozart was playful and brilliant. Elena loved learning about music this way. Marcus made every lesson feel like discovering a new world. As Marcus continued cleaning, Elena watched him work. He was thorough and careful, taking pride in doing his job well. Elena had never met anyone who worked as hard as Marcus did. Marcus, Elena said suddenly, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? Marcus stopped cleaning and thought seriously about the question. First, I would bring my mother to America and make sure she had the best medical care, he said. Then I would open a music school for children who can't afford lessons. Music shouldn't only be for rich people. Elena was touched by Marcus's answer. Even in his fantasies, he was thinking about helping others. What about you? Would you go back to performing? Marcus smiled sadly. I don't know. I've been away from serious music for so long. Maybe I would just teach. There's something beautiful about passing music on to the next generation. Elena realized that Marcus had found a way to make peace with his lost dreams. He had transformed his disappointment into a desire to help others achieve what he couldn't. I think you would be a wonderful teacher, Elena said. I hope I'm being a good teacher to you. Elena looked into Marcus's kind eyes. You're teaching me much more than piano. What do you mean? Elena wanted to tell Marcus that he was teaching her about love, about sacrifice, about what it meant to live with purpose. But she couldn't find the words. You're teaching me what's really important in life, she said simply. Marcus smiled. Music teaches us about life. The two are connected. That evening during their lesson, Elena made a decision. She was going to tell Marcus how she felt about him. She couldn't keep her feelings secret anymore. But as she was gathering courage to speak, Marcus said something that stopped her. Elena, I need to tell you something important. Elena's heart jumped. Maybe Marcus was going to tell her that he had feelings for her too. I got news from China today, Marcus continued. My mother is getting sicker. She needs surgery soon or she might die. Elena felt her heart break for Marcus. I'm so sorry. I need to work extra hours to save money for her surgery. I got a fourth job working early mornings at a bakery. It means I won't be able to give you piano lessons for a while. Elena felt panicked. The piano lessons were her only time with Marcus. Without them, she might not see him at all. How long? She asked. Maybe 2 months. I'm sorry, but my mother has to come first. Elena understood, but she felt devastated. 2 months without seeing Marcus felt like a lifetime. Is there anything I can do to help? Elena asked desperately. Just keep practicing what I've taught you. Don't lose what you've learned. Elena wanted to offer Marcus money for his mother's surgery, but she knew he would refuse. His pride would not let him accept help even for something so important. That night, Elena lay awake thinking about Marcus's mother dying while Elena sat on millions of dollars she didn't need. It seemed cruel and unfair. Elena realized that she was facing a choice. She could respect Marcus's pride and watch him suffer, or she could find a way to help him without him knowing. Elena had an idea. It was risky and complicated, but it might work. The next day, Elena called her family's lawyer. She asked him to research Marcus's mother's medical situation in China. She wanted to know which hospital she was in and how much the surgery would cost. I want to make an anonymous donation, Elena told the lawyer. The family should never know where the money came from. Elena's plan to help Marcus's mother worked perfectly. Within 2 weeks, the lawyer called to tell her that an anonymous donor had paid for the surgery. Marcus's mother would receive the best medical care available, but Elena's joy was mixed with worry. She had been finding excuses to see Marcus during his work hours, and people were starting to notice. Elena, why do you spend so much time in the building lobby? Asked Sarah during one of their lunches. Tom, the security guard, told my doorman that you're always hanging around downstairs. Elena's heart jumped with panic. I like to practice piano in the community room. It's quieter than my apartment. Since when do you care about piano? You quit lessons when you were 13. I'm trying to learn again. It's relaxing. Sarah looked suspicious but didn't push further. However, Elena could see that her friend was getting curious about her strange behavior. The real problem came a few days later. Elena was in the community room practicing piano when Marcus knocked on the door. Elena, he said excitedly, I have wonderful news. Elena looked up from the piano, her heart racing at seeing his happy face. What is it? Someone paid for my mother's surgery, an anonymous donor. The hospital called this morning to say everything is taken care of. Elena had to work hard to look surprised instead of pleased. That's amazing. Do you know who did it? No idea. The hospital says the donor wants to remain completely anonymous. It's like a miracle. Elena felt warm with happiness seeing Marcus so relieved and grateful. This means I can go back to regular work hours, Marcus continued. I don't need the fourth job anymore. We can continue your piano lessons. Elena felt her heart soar. She would get to see Marcus regularly again. "When can we start?" she asked eagerly. "Tomorrow night, if you want." Elena nodded enthusiastically. Then she realized how excited she looked and tried to appear more casual. But Marcus had noticed her enthusiasm. He looked at her thoughtfully for a moment. "Elena, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why is piano so important to you? Most wealthy people I know don't practice every day like you do." Elena felt trapped by the question. She couldn't tell Marcus that piano was just an excuse to spend time with him. "Music makes me feel alive," she said. Which was true even if it wasn't the whole truth. Marcus smiled. "I understand that feeling." As Marcus left to continue his work, Elena felt guilty about lying to him. But she also felt hopeful. She would get to see him again tomorrow night. What Elena didn't know was that someone had seen her conversation with Marcus in the community room. Mrs. Patterson, the wealthy older woman who lived on the 15th floor, had been walking by when she saw Elena talking animatedly with the janitor. Mrs. Patterson was the biggest gossip in the building. She immediately called Sarah. "Sarah, dear, I saw something very strange today," Mrs. Patterson said on the phone. Elena was in the community room talking to the night janitor. They seemed very familiar. Sarah felt her curiosity explode into suspicion. "What do you mean familiar?" Well, they were standing close together and Elena looked very happy to see him. It was quite unusual. After hanging up with Mrs. Patterson, Sarah decided to investigate. She had always been protective of Elena, sometimes to an unhealthy degree. She could not stand the idea of Elena having secrets from her. The next evening, Sarah waited in the building lobby. She hid behind a large plant where she could see the elevators but not be seen. At 11:30, Sarah watched Elena come down in the elevator. Elena looked nervous and excited. A few minutes later, the janitor appeared with his cleaning supplies. Sarah watched in shock as Elena and the janitor greeted each other like old friends. Then they sat down at the piano together, very close on the same bench. Sarah could not hear what they were saying, but she could see Elena laughing and smiling in a way she had never seen before. When the janitor played piano, Elena watched him, with obvious admiration and something that looked like love. Sarah felt sick with jealousy and anger. Her best friend was having some kind of relationship with a janitor, and she had kept it completely secret. Sarah quietly left the building and went home to plan what to do next. The following day, Sarah called Elena for lunch. "Elena, we need to talk," Sarah said as soon as they sat down at their usual expensive restaurant. "About what?" "About you and the janitor." Elena felt her blood turn cold. "What janitor? Don't lie to me, Elena. I saw you last night. You were in the lobby with him at midnight. You were sitting together at the piano like lovers." Elena felt trapped and panicked. "Sarah, it's not what you think." "Really? Then explain it. To me." Elena tried to think of a believable lie, but her mind was blank. She had never been good at lying, especially to Sarah. "He's teaching me piano," Elena said weakly. "At midnight in secret, Elena, I'm not stupid." Sarah leaned forward with angry eyes. "Are you having an affair with the building janitor?" "It's not an affair," Elena said quickly. "We're just friends." "Friends, Elena? He's a janitor. He's probably from some poor country and doesn't even speak English properly. What could you possibly have in common with someone like that?" Elena felt anger rising in her chest. "Marcus is one of the smartest, most talented people I've ever met. He speaks perfect English, and he's a brilliant musician. Marcus. You know his name? Elena. This is worse than I thought." Sarah sat back in her chair, looking at Elena like she had never seen her before. "How long has this been going on?" 2 months, Elena admitted. 2 months. "Elena, have you lost your mind? What would your parents say? What would Richard say?" Elena felt tired of pretending. "I don't care what Richard says. I don't love Richard." "Love? Oh my God, Elena. You think you're in love with a janitor?" Elena looked directly into Sarah's eyes. Yes, I am in love with him. Sarah stared at Elena, in shock. Then her expression changed to something cold and calculating. Elena, I'm going to give you 24 hours to end this ridiculous situation. What do you mean? End whatever this relationship is. Stop seeing him. Go back to your normal life. And if I don't, then I'll have to tell your parents, and Richard, and everyone else we know. Elena felt her world starting to collapse. Sarah, you're supposed to be my friend. I am your friend. That's why I'm trying to save you from ruining your life. How is loving someone ruining my life? Elena, you can't be serious. You're talking about a man who cleans toilets for a living. He probably wants your money. Elena felt fury like she had never experienced before. Marcus doesn't even know I have money. He thinks I'm just another rich girl taking piano lessons. Of course he knows you have money. Everyone in the city knows who the Rosewoods are. Elena realized that Sarah was probably right. Marcus certainly knew her family was wealthy. It doesn't matter, Elena said firmly. Marcus isn't interested in my money. He's the most honest person I've ever met. Elena, you're being naive. Men like that always want something from women like us. Elena stood up from the table. I can't listen to this anymore. Where are you going? Home. I need to think. Sarah grabbed Elena's arm. 24 hours, Elena. End this, or I will. Elena pulled her arm away and walked out of the restaurant. That evening, Elena paced around her penthouse apartment. She felt torn between protecting Marcus and protecting herself. If Sarah told Elena's parents about the relationship, they would be furious. They might cut her off financially and socially. But worse than that, they would probably find a way to hurt Marcus. They could have him fired from his job. They could make sure he never found work in the city again. Elena realized that her love for Marcus was putting him in danger. She had been selfish, pursuing her own happiness without thinking about the consequences for him. But Elena also realized that she couldn't live without Marcus in her life. He had shown her what it meant to love someone deeply and purely. He had taught her about sacrifice, dedication, and finding meaning beyond material things. At 11:30, Elena went down to the lobby for her piano lesson. Marcus was waiting with his usual warm smile. Good evening, Elena. How was your practice today? Elena tried to smile back, but Marcus could see something was wrong. What's the matter? He asked gently. Elena wanted to tell Marcus about Sarah's threat. She wanted to ask him what they should do, but she realized that would only put more pressure on him. Nothing, Elena lied. I'm just tired. They sat down at the piano together, but Elena couldn't concentrate on the lesson. Her mind was spinning with worry about what would happen next. Elena, Marcus said after a few minutes, you're not focused tonight. Is something bothering you? Elena looked into Marcus's kind, concerned eyes. She felt her heart breaking at the thought of losing him. Marcus, she said quietly, what would you do if you had to choose between something you loved and protecting someone you cared about? Marcus thought seriously about the question. I think love sometimes means making sacrifices to protect the people we care about. Elena nodded, but she felt tears starting to form in her eyes. But, Marcus continued, true love also means being honest with each other. If something is wrong, you should tell the person you care about. Elena wanted to tell Marcus everything, but she was afraid that if he knew about Sarah's threat, he would disappear from her life to protect her from scandal. I should go, Elena said suddenly, standing up from the piano. But we just started the lesson. I'm sorry, I can't concentrate tonight. Elena didn't sleep at all that night. By morning, she had made her painful decision. She would end her relationship with Marcus to protect him from the scandal that Sarah threatened to create. But as Elena was getting dressed, her phone rang. It was her father. Elena, we need to talk. Come to my office immediately. Elena's heart sank. Her father's voice was cold and angry. Sarah had already told them. Elena arrived at her father's office building an hour later. The Rosewood Corporation occupied 3 floors of a Manhattan skyscraper. Elena had grown up thinking this empire would someday be partly hers. Her father, William Rosewood, was waiting in his huge corner office. He was a tall, stern man in his 50s with gray hair and hard eyes. Her mother, Catherine, sat in a chair nearby, looking disappointed and embarrassed. "Sit down, Elena," her father said without any warmth. Elena sat down, trying to prepare herself for what was coming. "Sarah Patterson called us this morning," her father began. "She told us some very disturbing information about your recent behavior." Elena said nothing. She knew it was better to let her father talk first. "Apparently you've been having some kind of inappropriate relationship with a janitor in your building." "It's not inappropriate," Elena said quietly. "He's been teaching me piano." Her mother spoke up with a sharp voice. "At midnight? In secret? Elena, do you think we're fools?" "Piano lessons don't require secrecy," her father added. "Unless something else is happening." Elena felt trapped and angry. "Nothing improper has happened between Marcus and me." "Marcus?" her mother gasped. "You know his name?" Elena realized she had made things worse by using Marcus's first name. "Elena," her father said sternly, "I want you to listen very carefully. The Rosewood family has a reputation to maintain. We have business relationships and social standing that cannot be damaged by scandal." "What scandal?" "I'm taking piano lessons." "Don't lie to me," her father said, his voice getting louder. "Sarah saw you. You were behaving like a woman in love." Elena felt her cheeks turn red. She couldn't deny what her father had said. "Even if that were true," Elena said carefully, "why would it be a scandal?" Her mother looked at Elena like she had lost her mind. "Elena, he's a janitor. He's probably an illegal immigrant who doesn't even belong in this country." "Marcus is here legally," Elena said angrily. "And his immigration status has nothing to do with his worth as a person. His worth as a person?" her father repeated. "Elena, you sound like you've been brainwashed." Elena felt fury building inside her. "No, I've been educated. Marcus has taught me more about life and values than I ever learned from anyone in our social circle." Her parents looked at each other with alarm. "Elena," her father said slowly, "you will end this relationship immediately. It's not a relationship, we're friends. You will stop seeing this man in any capacity," her father continued. "You will stop taking piano lessons. You will return to your normal social activities. And if I don't?" Her father's eyes became cold and hard. "Then you will be cut off from this family financially and socially. You will no longer be welcome in our home. Your trust fund will be frozen. Your credit cards will be canceled." Elena felt the world spinning around her. Her parents were threatening to disown her. "Furthermore," her father continued, "I will personally ensure that this Marcus person is fired from his job and blacklisted from working anywhere in the city." Elena felt her blood turn to ice. "You can't do that." "I can and I will. I have connections in the building management company. One phone call from me, and your janitor friend will be unemployed and unable to find work." Elena realized that her father was serious. He had the power and connections to destroy Marcus's life. "Dad, please, don't hurt Marcus. He's done nothing wrong. He has corrupted my daughter's judgment." "That's enough." Elena felt desperate. "What do you want me to do?" "First, you will call Richard Ashworth and apologize for your recent behavior. You will agree to have dinner with him this weekend." Elena felt sick. "I don't want to see Richard." "What you want is no longer relevant," her mother said sharply. "Richard is a suitable match for you. His family has money and social standing. You will marry him within the year." Elena felt like she was suffocating. "I don't love Richard. Love is a luxury you have lost the right to choose," her father said coldly. "You will learn to love Richard, or at least respect him as your husband. And second," her mother continued, "you will never see or speak to this janitor again. If you try to contact him, we will carry out our threats immediately." Elena sat in silence, feeling trapped and desperate. Her parents held all the power. They could destroy Marcus's life with a single phone call. "I need time to think," Elena said weakly. "There's nothing to think about," her father replied. "You have 24 hours to call Richard and apologize. If you don't, We will assume you have chosen to continue your inappropriate relationship, and we will take action accordingly. Elena left her father's office feeling numb and broken. She walked through the city streets for hours trying to figure out what to do. Elena realized that her challenge at the party, "Play and I will marry you," had been answered by Marcus in the most beautiful and unexpected way. He had played, and she had fallen in love with him. But now that love was being used to threaten both of them. That evening, Elena made the hardest decision of her life. She would protect Marcus by staying away from him, even though it would destroy her heart. At 11:30, Elena went down to the lobby one last time. Marcus was waiting at the piano with his usual warm smile. "Elena, I was worried about you after last night. Are you feeling better?" Elena felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She had to end this now before she lost her courage. "Marcus, I need to tell you something." Marcus could see that Elena was upset. "What's wrong?" "I can't continue taking piano lessons with you." Marcus looked confused and hurt. "Did I do something wrong? Are you unhappy with your progress?" "No," Elena said quickly. "You're a wonderful teacher. You've taught me so much." "Then why are you stopping?" Elena had prepared what she would say, but looking into Marcus's kind eyes made it much harder. "I've realized that I don't have time for piano. I have too many social obligations and family responsibilities." Marcus studied Elena's face. He could tell she was not telling the truth. "Elena, what's really going on?" Elena felt her resolve weakening. She wanted to tell Marcus everything, about Sarah's threats, about her parents' ultimatum, about how much she loved him. "I'm engaged," Elena said suddenly. The lie came out before she could stop it. It was the cruelest thing she could think of, to make Marcus understand that their relationship had to end. Marcus looked like he had been hit by a truck. "Engaged?" "Yes, to Richard Ashworth. We're getting married next year." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Elena could see the pain in his eyes, and it broke her heart. "I see," Marcus said finally. "Congratulations." "Thank you. I hope you'll be very happy." Elena wanted to scream that she would never be happy without him, but she forced herself to stay silent. "I should go," Elena said. "Of course. You probably have wedding plans to make." Elena turned to leave, but Marcus called her name softly. "Elena?" She turned back to look at him. "Thank you for letting me teach you. You brought music back into my life when I thought I had lost it forever." Elena felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you for teaching me what music really means." Elena walked to the elevator, feeling like she was walking to her own execution. As the doors closed, she saw Marcus sitting alone at the piano, looking devastated. The next morning, Elena called Richard as her parents had demanded. "Richard, it's Elena. I wanted to apologize for my behavior at the party." Richard sounded surprised but pleased. "Elena, I'm so glad you called. I was hoping we could work things out. Would you like to have dinner this weekend?" "I would love that. How about Saturday night? I'll take you to the best restaurant in the city." "That sounds fine." After hanging up, Elena felt empty and dead inside. She had protected Marcus by sacrificing her own happiness, but the victory felt hollow. Over the next few days, Elena tried to return to her old life. She went shopping with Sarah, who was pleased that Elena had come to her senses. She attended social events and charity functions. She smiled and made conversation with people who bored her, but everything felt meaningless without Marcus. Elena found herself thinking about him constantly. She wondered if he was still playing piano at midnight in the empty lobby. She wondered if he missed their conversations as much as she did. Elena also wondered if Marcus had believed her lie about being engaged to Richard. She hoped he had, because it would make it easier for him to move on with his life. On Saturday night, Elena had dinner with Richard at an expensive restaurant. Richard was charming and attentive. He told Elena about his business successes and his plans for their future together. "Elena, I want you to know that I've learned from my mistakes," Richard said over dessert. I was showing off at your party, trying to impress you with talents I don't have. It's all right, Richard. But I want to be honest with you about who I really am. I'm not a musician or an artist. I'm a businessman. But I can provide for you and give you the life you deserve. Elena listened to Richard's speech and realized that he was a decent man. He was handsome, successful, and genuinely cared about her. In the world she had grown up in, he was everything a woman could want in a husband. Elena spent the next week planning her rebellion against her family's expectations. She knew it would be the most difficult thing she had ever done, but Marcus had taught her that difficult things were often the most important. First, Elena went to see her family's lawyer privately. I want to understand my financial situation, Elena told him. If my parents cut me off, what would I have access to? The lawyer looked uncomfortable. Miss Rosewood, your parents control most of your assets until you're 30. However, you do have a small trust fund from your grandmother that they cannot touch. It's about $200,000. Elena smiled. $200,000 was not much by her family's standards, but it was enough to start a new life. I also want to liquidate some of my personal assets, Elena continued. My jewelry, my car, some artwork. Can you help me do that quietly? The lawyer looked worried. Miss Rosewood, are you in some kind of trouble? No, Elena said firmly. I'm finally getting out of trouble. Over the next few days, Elena secretly sold her most valuable possessions. Her diamond necklace, her designer watch, her expensive car. She kept only what she needed for her plan. Elena also spent time researching Marcus's situation. She learned more about his work schedule and his living situation. She discovered that he lived in a small apartment in Chinatown with 2 roommates. But, most importantly, Elena spent time thinking about what she really wanted from life. She realized that her wealth had always been a prison, keeping her from real experiences and genuine relationships. On Friday evening, Elena called Richard. Richard, I need to talk to you. Of course, Elena. How about dinner tomorrow night? Actually, I'd prefer to talk now. Could you come to my apartment? Richard arrived an hour later with flowers and a bottle of expensive wine. He was clearly expecting a romantic evening. Richard, please sit down, Elena said seriously. I have something important to tell you. Richard sat down, looking puzzled by Elena's serious tone. I can't marry you, Elena said directly. Richard looked shocked. What do you mean? I thought we were getting along well. We are getting along well. You're a good man, Richard. But I don't love you and you don't love me. Elena, love will come with time. We're perfectly suited for each other. Elena shook her head. Richard, have you ever felt like someone understood your soul? Like you would do anything to be with them? Richard looked confused. Elena, you're being overly romantic. No, I'm being honest. I know what real love feels like now, and what we have, isn't it? Richard's face changed as he began to understand. There's someone else, isn't there? Elena nodded. Yes. Who is he? Someone from our social circle? Elena took a deep breath. His name is Marcus Chen. He's the night janitor in this building. Richard stared at Elena like she had lost her mind. The janitor? Elena, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Richard stood up angrily. Elena, this is insane. You're throwing away everything for a man. Who cleans toilets? I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing love over convenience. Richard paced around the room. Your parents will disown you. Society will reject you. You'll lose everything. I'll lose money and social status, Elena corrected. But I'll gain something much more valuable. What could possibly be more valuable than the life you have? Elena thought about Marcus's music, his wisdom, his dedication to his family. Purpose, real love, a chance to become the person I'm supposed to be. Richard stared at Elena for a long moment. Then his expression softened, slightly. Elena, I hope you know what you're doing. I do. Richard picked up his flowers and wine. I suppose I should wish you happiness. Thank you, Richard. I hope you find real love too someday." After Richard left, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had taken the first step toward freedom. The next morning, Elena called her parents and asked them to come to her apartment. "We need to talk," she told her father when they arrived. "If this is about your engagement to Richard, I'm pleased to hear you've made the right decision," her father said. "Actually, I broke up with Richard last night." Elena's parents looked stunned. "Elena," her mother said carefully, "what are you doing?" "I'm choosing my own life instead of letting you choose it for me." Elena's father's face became red with anger. "This is about that janitor, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. I love Marcus and I'm going to be with him." "Over my dead body," her father said furiously. "Dad, I'm 24 years old. I have the right to choose who I love." "You have no rights as long as you're financially dependent on this family." Elena walked to her desk and pulled out a folder of papers. "Then I won't be financially dependent on you anymore." She handed the papers to her father. "I've liquidated my personal assets and accessed my grandmother's trust fund. I have enough money to live independently." Her father looked through the papers with growing shock and anger. "Elena, this is financial suicide. You're giving up millions of dollars for what? A few $100,000? I'm giving up money that was never really mine for a chance at real happiness." Elena's mother started crying. "Elena, please don't do this. Think about our family's reputation." "Mom, I've thought about nothing else my whole life. I'm tired of living for other people's opinions." Elena felt sad seeing her parents' pain, but she also felt free for the first time in her life. "If you go through with this," her father said coldly, "you are no longer our daughter." Elena felt tears in her eyes, but her voice was steady. "Then that's a price I'm willing to pay." Her parents left without saying goodbye. That evening, Elena went down to the lobby at 11:30. She had not seen Marcus for a week, and her heart was racing with nervous excitement. Marcus was at the piano, but he was not playing. He was just sitting there looking sad and lost. "Marcus," Elena said softly. Marcus turned around, and Elena could see that her lie about being engaged had hurt him deeply. "Elena," Marcus said politely, "how are your wedding plans going?" Elena walked closer to the piano. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. I lied to you." Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm not engaged to Richard. I never was. I broke up with him last night." Marcus stared at Elena. "Why did you lie to me?" Elena sat down on the piano bench next to Marcus. "Because I was scared. My family found out about our friendship and threatened to have you fired if I didn't stop seeing you." Marcus looked shocked. "Your family knows about me?" "They know, and they're furious. They've disowned me because I refused to give you up." Marcus stood up quickly. "Elena, what have you done?" "I've chosen love over money. I've chosen you over them." Marcus looked panicked. "Elena, you can't do this. You don't understand what you're giving up." "I understand perfectly. I'm giving up a life that made me miserable for a chance at a life that makes me happy." Marcus shook his head. "Elena, I can't let you sacrifice everything for me." Elena stood up and took Marcus's hands in hers. "Marcus, do you remember what you told me about music? Sometimes you have to change keys in the middle of a piece, but the melody stays the same?" Marcus nodded. "My life is changing keys. But the melody, the part that makes me who I am, that melody includes you now." Marcus looked into Elena's eyes and saw the sincerity there. "Elena, are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything. Marcus, I love you." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, the most beautiful smile Elena had ever seen. "I love you too, Elena. I have loved you since the night you first asked me to play for you." Marcus pulled Elena into his arms and kissed her. It was the first kiss they had shared, and it felt like coming home. When they broke apart, Elena was crying with happiness. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now we build a life together. It won't be easy, and it won't be luxurious, but it will be real." Elena told Marcus about her plans. She had enough money to support them both, while Marcus pursued his music again. She wanted to open a small music school where Marcus could teach piano to children who couldn't afford lessons. "Elena, are you sure you can be happy with a simple life?" Marcus asked. Elena thought about the empty years she had spent shopping and attending meaningless parties. "Marcus, these past few months with you have been the happiest of my life. I don't need expensive things. I need you." 6 months later, Elena and Marcus were married in a small ceremony in Chinatown. Elena's parents did not attend, but Marcus's mother had recovered enough to travel from China for the wedding. Elena had never been happier. She and Marcus opened their music school in a working-class neighborhood. Elena taught business skills to immigrant families while Marcus taught piano to their children. They lived in a small apartment above the school. It was nothing like the penthouse Elena had grown up in, but it was filled with love and music. One evening, as they were closing the school, Elena heard familiar voices outside. She looked out the window and saw some of her old friends walking by. "Look at that," one of them said, pointing at the school. "Elena Rosewood teaching music to poor kids, how the mighty have fallen." Elena felt a moment of sadness for her lost friendships. But then Marcus began playing the lullaby he had taught her on their first night together, the song about a mother singing to her child across the distance. Elena realized that she had not fallen at all. She had risen to become the person she was always meant to be. A year later, Elena's piano playing had improved dramatically. She performed at their school's first recital,